You are now tuned in to Let It Be the Podcast with Bre Fergie, a podcast where we discuss a variety of topics from lifestyle, faith, and the struggles of the everyday believer. This is a podcast about simply releasing control and just letting things be. I'm so glad you tuned in for the conversation, and don't worry, it's safe here. What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to the second episode of Season 2, Let It Be the Podcast. Now, if you listen to the first episode, it was my first one back from my very long hiatus. I was talking about literally fighting back because that's kind of how I am. That's where I am right now in my life. Just literally feel like I'm fighting for my life. I'm fighting for my purpose, fighting to stay encouraged, fighting to stay obedient. And so in that episode, I definitely just wanted to share where I was, but also share some tips on how to combat those feelings that you have when you're fighting, when your mind is fighting against itself. And having that conversation, I felt it very heavy on my spirit that we needed to kind of take another step as far as like fighting back, because I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, it's hard for me to fight because I don't know what I'm fighting for. I don't know, if it's even worth it or not. And so I think that a lesson that all of us have to like either learn or remind ourselves is just to just be where we are and like make the best out of the situations that we are currently in. And I did not want to have this conversation alone. So I'm so excited. I'm super happy that my special friend is joining me, Jazz. So we're going to get into like how we met. Very funny story on how we met, but I'm just so excited to hear her perspective, her honest perspective of where she is, where I was, like, especially when we met each other. I think that is something that I need to be reminded of. And so I have a very special friend, Jazz. She's here with me in the flesh. Hey, Jazz.
Hey, Bre.
How are you?
Well, good. Excited to be on the podcast. Thank you for letting me be on.
Thank you for being here and agreeing. This is actually the second time we've recorded. We did have an episode a while ago, but it didn't come out, and it's okay. But she also allowed me to be a part of her podcast before, and that was like probably one of the first. I think that was the first podcast or the second one that I had ever been on before. So that was a big pivotal moment for me, something big. So thank you for letting me be a part of your journey back
Thanks
then.
for being on. Till this day, I still get DMs about it, and it's called Office Politics is the name of the podcast, and I guess can we put it in the show notes?
Yeah.
Specific episode?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if you ever like go down memory lane and you remind yourself like, dang, this is even to the small things of how I used to talk, but how I used to think, where I used to be. So introduce yourself. Like, who are you? Where you from? What you be doing, girl? What you do on your free time?
Oh, well, I would say Jasmine, 31. By day, I am a recruiter. And I would say by night, I watch a lot of reruns. I play with my dog, and I'm really into home decor. Let's see.
Do you think that home decor is that... So that's kind of how I am right now. It's not something that I wasn't necessarily interested in so much before. But now in my older years, I'm like, ooh, I want this in my house. I want to change this up. Like I want.
You're in your nesting era.
Literally. So I sometimes like I want to throw away everything in my house and start over. Like
stop. That's what I want to do all the time.
Literally, my couch. I hate looking at my couch. It's like an eyesore to me. At first, I was like, oh, I need a pop of color. My couch is red. I hate looking at it now. So. Cool. Okay. So let's get into like how we actually know each other. I love telling the story, and it's so funny. My dad always asks about you,
really,
all the time. Yes, because when I met Jazz, it was I was still fairly new to Dallas. I don't think I had really been here. I hadn't been here a full year.
Wait, really? Not even
in
a
Dallas?
year?
Maybe. I'm trying
to
think.
Well, I guess you did come from Houston, so in my mind, maybe I'm thinking of Texas.
I didn't necessarily live in Houston. I was trying to live in Houston. So, but yeah, so we met, was it 2017? Okay, so, I guess like I'm going to share from my perspective, and I want you to share from your perspective. So, when I got hired, so backstory. Jasmine used to be my boss. She's my boss turned friend. So when we met, I had been interviewing for a job that I was actually going to be a recruiter, but they mixed my paperwork up. And so that when I got into the interview, they were calling me by somebody else's name. And I was so goofy, and I just like, I need a job. So who would you say I am? I don't care. Send me where you need to send me. Okay. And so I was confused at first, but they like gave me this address. Like, okay, your interview is at this place. And so I ended up going to the place to be interviewed, and I was like, what the heck is this place? It was like dogs walking all around the office. It was in a rinky-dink area where I was like, am I even safe to get out the car? Like, where am I? But it was something in the conversation that I had with the manager at the time. She was super cool. And my curiosity was just like, just see what happens, right? And so I ended up going back to the office, and they was like, wow, we made a mistake. We sent you to this offsite. But I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I'm curious. Like, I want to go down this path. So fast forward that up a little bit, my manager ended up quitting like 3 months after I got the job. And mind you, I'm brand new at Dallas and still new in my professional career. So I didn't really know what the heck I was doing at all. And I got, like I started to like get acclimated, like just making things afloat. But I was like, hey, y'all asking me to do a lot and y'all are not really paying me. And so realized that they were like going to be, I didn't understand at that time that they were actually going to be interviewing like people for this role, but I had applied for it and I had already been doing it. So I'm thinking like it's a no-go. What they did was pay me more, so I would hush. And so I think for a little bit I kind of just was like, I'm not really pressed about it so much. But then fast forward, you come in for an interview, and I was like helping with them interview people all the time. So I was always setting up the office. I was an office manager, interim office manager. But your vibe, I instantly clicked with you. And I remember after your interview, they came out and they were just asking me like, how do you feel about her? What do you think? Was she nice to you? This, that, and the third. I'm like, yeah, I think we should go forward. Not even really understanding to the full capacity, like, oh, this is your boss now.
Isn't that wild?
It's crazy how corporate
works. And I could tell you didn't know because, and you obviously know this part of the story, but I thought it was weird that you were not in the interview. And then I thought, shouldn't someone have like formally introduced me to her or said, hey, like this is going to be your boss? So it actually got to the point, I remember thinking either she went out for the role and didn't get it, or we're letting her go. Like there's something shady going on. And I get in the car, I call the recruiter, and the recruiter's living in San Francisco. And she's like, no, like, we just, don't worry about it.
Right, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But to be honest, coming into that, I'm not gonna lie, I felt the way, not about you, but about the company. And I was totally like, I need to, like, get up. Like, this is not the place for me.
Well, and it goes back to transparency. Yes, we're having a movement now where we talk about employee wellness and open communication. 2017, it was more like, hush up, do you get a paycheck every 2 weeks?
Be quiet.
Be quiet.
Yep.
When really it should have been, hey, we love you. We still want to find someone else to replace. We'll call her Susan, the person I replaced. We still want to find somebody to replace Susan. We hope you still continue your career here. But in the meantime, would you like to be on the interview panel? Or here are the things we're looking for. Let us know if you find it. But there was none of that.
Exactly. And so at that time, I was so unsure of myself too, because I was still brand new in Dallas and I was still new in my career, and I didn't know. I felt like, did I make the right choice? I was going through all of those feelings, and I'm like, dang, this sucks. And I was like, well, maybe I should just leave. And then that took a big hit to my confidence, because I felt like I wasn't good enough for the job. Even though I was doing the job, I felt like, oh, I don't know enough. I don't have enough experience. They don't like me. I'm not good enough. And so I never had animosity to you, but to the company. So let's get into like, after we get through that, you get hired, we become cool. You're my manager. And to be honest, Jazz, like the best manager I ever had, because I was like, wow, she's young. She's like my age almost. Yeah. And it's just like, but I'm learning so much about her. And then you would like give me assignments, like, because at that time, I really wasn't thinking long term about my career. I wasn't really thinking about like, well, what do you want to do? How do you make the most out of where you are right now? And you would ask me those questions like, okay, well, what can you do with this? And I'm like, I don't really know. I just was kind of here. So in that season for me, like God definitely.
Although,
go ahead.
I do think you always knew you had, like, you've always had big aspirations. Hopefully any listeners likely already know that about you. I think where we can get lost or directionless is okay, I'm not doing this other thing that I think I'm supposed to be doing, so what do I do in the meantime?
Yes.
Which we'll get into in today's episode, because
so
I think that's where I'm at.
But that's so crazy because of what we're talking about. Basically, like blooming where you're planted. That's something that my big sister said to me, and I never forgot it because I struggled so just in my journey of Dallas and trying to find myself. And I think that, like, especially when I was, I would say every year up until 2019 is when I finally got it. Like, oh, my career does not define my purpose. My career does not, where I am, what I have does not validate my purpose in life. Like, so I'm going to always feel like I'm running after something I need to achieve this thing, and that's going to validate me. I did not understand that wasn't true until, like, I think 2019 is when my life was, like, so raggedy. My life was so raggedy in 2019. For real. It was so raggedy. And I was just like, okay, well, everything that I've done everything. I've checked all my boxes, everything that I wanted to do. And I was like, girl, that's it? Like,
yep.
And so I was just like,
spoiler alert, that's where I'm at now.
Girl, it's okay. It's okay. But, like, you learn that. I feel like you have to learn that lesson differently in different seasons. It shows up differently. So don't even, like, sweat it. Okay, so we ended up getting cool. We worked together, like, for what, about a year? I think I was there about a year. So can you share, like, because, like, that's kind of where I was, just like with that job. I was just like, okay, well, the door was shut in my face. So how do I make the best out of where I am right now? What am I supposed to do with this? And then, like, also I took it as an opportunity to learn from you. And we had a lot of kiki moments. We had a lot of tears that we shed. So can you kind of share, like, on your journey to get in that job, and where you were mentally with that?
Yeah, I don't even know if you remember this. I went to that job because I'd been, quote unquote, laid off. It was one of those, like, we both just knew it wasn't a fit type of job, so you're kind of, like, politely ushered out of the company. So it was like a polite firing. And I was devastated. And at that point in my life, I was 26. Yeah, I was 26. I was engaged. I laugh now, but at that point, I thought I was so old. And I was embarrassed that I had never had a promotion at that time. And I really thought, okay, the answer to this is to overcorrect and overcompensate. And I went into that job. I was really excited for it. I still have great memories there. I can look back now in hindsight and see where I made it the center of my universe. You know, in recovery, we call it idols. Like, I made that company my idol for sure. So much so when I left Bre, I really contemplated getting a heart, like, in the blue color.
Stop.
How pathetic would that be now? If
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Stop,
if I
Jess.
had a blue heart.
Stop it.
And then if people said, what's it for? To remember my time at this company.
Girl.
No, embarrassing.
I'm weak.
Okay, raggedy. So I would say that's where I was. So I would say on paper, it was maybe the assignment was more clear. Bloom where you were planted. Okay, do a good job at this so you can get more money, get a promotion, keep up with your friends who are more successful than you. So that's really where I was.
Wow. And so I think that at that time, I was, like I said, I was still trying to figure out my worth. And so I think it's just so funny that we got placed together at that time because of where I was. I was looking at you like, oh, if I was just more like Jazz, then I would be accepted. And they would, maybe at my next job, or maybe even if I stay here a little bit longer, maybe they will see me, or, you know. But then, like, if we get really into it, when I started to see how you were, I don't want to say performing, but, like, performing, not in a bad way. But I'm just saying, like, you took your role and you really was, like, going ham. Like, you started creating, you got promoted and got to do so many things just because of, like, when you think about blooming where you're planted, you took advantage of the space that you were in at that time. And you probably don't look at it like that, but you did. You took advantage of it and you said, hey, y'all open up this door for me. Let me show you everything that I can do. So from creating policies to just doing everything. Like, you did what I couldn't do. And instead of me, like, I wasn't envious. I really was like learning from you, because I'm like, okay, what can I learn from her that, go ahead.
And I think there's something to be said about, because up until that point, you had never been like laid off or fired, right?
Girl, yes, I have. Yes, ma'am. I don't think it was to the level of like in my professional career. I feel like that was the first time. Like, I mean, like in college, I got fired from like Taco Bell.
No. I'm saying
like a real job.
Yeah, like
a big job. Okay.
Yeah. Once you've been fired from a big girl job, that experience is traumatic and will leave you with some real PTSD. So I think I went into it, I have no other options. I have to make this work. And, you know, I think you talked a little bit earlier about worthiness. While it was showing up one way for you, for me, I wanted to be accepted too. More so, I was operating from a place of fear. Like, I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be fired again. I don't want to be scared if my job is going to go away next week. So, I have to prove my worthiness every single day. That was the mindset I was in.
Good. And see, I think, like, my motivation has always been, like, survival. Because, like, I wasn't raised where it's, like, I think a lot of people probably can find themselves, or, like, their parents, with that mindset, like, you got a good job, you keep your head down, you work, you don't, this is what, my parent would say this to me. I ain't gonna say which one, but, like, you got a good job, you making a lot of money, that's good enough. Just work there, keep your head down, don't make no complaints, stop complaining, you know, at least you got a job. But for me, I was just like, I'm crushing, I'm like crying, I'm dying inside. Like, there has to be something more, and they're not accepting me here, so maybe I have to do better somewhere else. Like, I think that, like, a fight or flight mentality, but at that time, I couldn't. And I really have that mentality, like, kind of, I'm unlearning it, but that's kind of bad for me. I think that at that time, it was just like, okay, well, this is where you are now. How can you make the best out of it? And so, instead of me being in that space, wishing that I was somewhere else, it was just kind of like, what am I learning here? And it's so crazy how God works everything together, because everything that I was doing, like, a lot of the, because I went from, what was my role? I don't even remember. Like, I went from being the interim office manager to, like, I wasn't just a front desk person, but I was like, I don't remember what I wore a lot of hats. I was IT.
Yeah, I feel like
I was HR. I did a lot. Like, when you work for a startup company,
I was just gonna say that,
you learn, like, I feel like a lot of people, especially young people, like, coming out of college, you find you a startup job, you're going to get a lot of skills and figure out what sticks for you and then go and build on that. That's literally what I had. Like, I didn't understand it at that time, but I started to figure it out just from talking to other people. But I felt like at that time at the job, it was just like, okay, what else can I do? And I started, like, making more money than I was making before. And I kind of got comfortable in a sense, but I did not understand at that time that, no, what you doing in this season, it does matter.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that for me, like, looking back on it now, I can see all the things that I, like, the technical things that I've done, to the attention to detail, to, like, gathering things, and I just learned so many little things, little bitty tools that I needed to unlock the next door for me.
Do you think about the mustard seed? I think that's what I'm trying to cling to these days.
The mustard seed of faith. I think just going through life a little bit more has, especially in that season, it reminds me, like, it's going somewhere. It means something. You might not see it now, but if you still there, it's for a reason. Learn what you can learn, because I think a lot of us fall victim into, like, okay, I don't want to learn this lesson no more. I'm done with this. I'm done with these tests. Let's go on to the next. Because I think girl, me too. So I think that like, being in that space, I just was like, okay, while I'm here, what can I do? And you challenged me a lot, just to think bigger. And so then once I took. And we went through a lot at that job, too. A lot of things that was still very new to me. I didn't know how nasty the corporate world could be.
And this is, like, pre-2020, so everyone's down with the brown today. Well,
girl, or
more
pretend
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
it wasn't like that in 2017.
And I never knew how I could feel so. I never thought that I would allow like to be at a space where it's like, am I just a number here to fill a quota? Am I just like, I look good because I'm the black girl? Because when I got hired, it wasn't. I don't think there were any black people. I think I might have been the first. Was I?
Well, wasn't there S and?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Before they, so I was like one of the first, and then and then they came. They meaning like other black girls that got hired.
Okay.
And then you came.
Yeah. And I was gonna say when I was there, M was there, and then S was there.
Oh yeah, no, they wasn't. Okay. They wasn't there. But also, what I appreciated about that time is like I saw a young black girl who whipped these people into shape, basically, and that was so inspiring to me because I also felt like I didn't fit into their how do you say it? I didn't fit into
No, I mean, I just had this conversation with a colleague on Friday, last week, and she the professional way she said it, and I was like, that's brilliant. I'm going to keep using that. She said, you and I, she's also a black woman, she's like, we're very culturally fluent. We can like kind of move into different circles and speak the different languages and like curry favor that way. But we were just saying how if you don't know how to do that or you're not taught how to do that, it's an isolating feeling. It's even an isolating feeling, me being in it, knowing how the office politics work, but still understanding the trauma that goes along with it. But yeah, I think you didn't fit the mold, but they let it be known too. I think there's some people who wanted you to feel uncomfortable. Yeah. They wanted you to leave because they wanted to make you so uncomfortable that you left. And they were very intentional about that.
That's sad.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it makes me sad, actually. But it's funny that you say that, like, not fitting the mold. And, like, because for me, I was so unsure of myself. I was so unsure of being in that space. But I was in survival mode, too. So it's just like, who cares how you feel, girl? You got bills to pay. And then, like, you done moved to this city, this big city. I don't have nobody here. So I'm going to cry in the car on the way, and maybe we can take a break and cry in the break room. You know what I'm saying? But like,
and we did.
It definitely did. But I still got to go. Like,
let me ask you, like, because we can always look back in hindsight and see, oh, this is how I bloomed where I was planted. That fight or flight, do you remember there being an active decision to, all right, I'm here, so I'm going to make it work? Or was it, I'm trying to run away from the situation, but that's not really working out, and then it just organically started to work out? And you, like, how much of it was a faith walk, and how much of it was a, you know what, I'm starting to see some of the goodness that maybe, maybe it's not so bad?
I think that in the beginning, for me at least, I was so like, how do I say it? Like, I was enjoying where it was just because I didn't have to do as much work as I was doing before. And so it was just like, okay, I make cool money to do like little. And like, I was in that for a second, but then it was just like, then I got that nudge because like, I'm a believer. And like, I feel like God, like me moving to Dallas was nothing but faith anyway. And so once I started to feel like, okay, like when you can kind of feel when your season is changing, and sometimes you can't, but for me, I could kind of feel like, okay, it's time for you to like take a leap, because I had got so comfortable. So it was like, take a leap, kind of like how I was feeling before I decided to just up and move to Dallas. It was just like, okay, there's more for you, but I felt like I wasn't good enough at that time still. And so I think that like all the conversations that we were having, but then you talk about the uncomfortability that we were starting to go through because all of the quote unquote office politics was making me uncomfortable. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want to feel like so poker faced when I come into a place I can't breathe. Like, I don't like the way this is making me feel. And I was like feeling like the help, and I'm like, there's so much more to me than the help. And in the beginning, it was just like, okay, I'm here. I had like the servant's heart posture, right? Because I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what this is gonna like lead to, But it's just so funny because when I ended up leaving that job, I applied for the job that was like my quote unquote my dream job. As big as I thought of myself at that time, and taking that job, I was like, dang, well, I've done this, and it's like all about wording and like perspective. And so I had to alter my perspective of everything that I had learned in a season where I felt like I was not seen, where I felt like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't learning enough, I didn't fit the mold. But then I looked, because like one thing that I tell people a lot when it comes to jobs, especially, is like I don't like to shy away from opportunities, because I always look at an opportunity to put a new tool in your tool bag, because you never know when you're going to have to pull that out and do something different, right? And so in the job that I had,
which I have to pause and just like shout out to the interns and the internships, because when you're an intern, and I know you weren't an intern, but I look back even 10 years into my career, I am still using organization, time management, and like administrative skills I learned as an intern. And when I had to take an internship after I graduated college, I thought it was a failure that I didn't have a full-time job after school, only to realize that job it handed me the tools that I use in my toolbox every workday.
So like that's literally how I took that opportunity. Like, okay, I learned a lot. Let me, use these tools that I got to equip me to, continue on with my career. So me leaving that job was definitely like me getting out of my comfort zone. But I also think it was like a mix of both, a bit of both, like fight or flight mentality. Like I feel like something is coming up, but then I also kind of felt like your season is up here. I felt it because I was so I don't want to say content, because I learned how to be content in the before I left. I learned how to just be content where I wasn't at. When it was time for me to be moved, God would move me, and He did. But like let's take our work hat off and talk about that, like from a spiritual level, or like a personal level. Like, have you feel like maybe in that season of life, like I don't know how much you can remember, like as far as where you were, because I think that was around, was that 2019? That was 2018
when you left.
2017, 2018.
I started 2017, and then I think you left in 2018.
Yeah, I did. Okay, so I'm just thinking, like, because my faith has been like a literally blind walk in obedience for me. So I think God had to like help me unravel, like trying to make my worth be in my work, because it wasn't that. And I didn't learn that lesson it took a long time, because I was still chasing after it. And I think that, and I'll share this like eventually, but like 2019, that is just the year when it all like really clicked to me. It took time though. But as far as your faith, like, have you ever found yourself in a space where it's just like in life in general, like I hate how I am. I hate how I feel. You can speak about it how you feel today, or just thinking back over your life, like in like the first time you had to like just embrace where you are.
Yeah, I'm definitely going through that right now, but to kind of speak about something where I can kind of tell you more about the beginning, middle, and end of a season. 2014, I still live in Dallas, but I graduated college. I was going through a horrible breakup. I was doing internships while the rest of my friends had full-time jobs. The girl who told me I had nothing to worry about was the girl he was with. And, I was unraveling, and I was so depressed, couldn't get out of bed. I was only living in Dallas because that's where my parents had relocated, and when I first got to Dallas, I didn't have a job, period, not even an internship. So I felt like the very definition of a loser. I was left for the other girl. I was without a job. I had a degree in something that I was no longer passionate in. And when I tell you, I really thought that feeling would last forever, so much so that I did try to take my own life. Obviously, I'm talking today, so it was unsuccessful. Thank God. But yeah, I committed suicide, and I failed.
Yeah. So, like, it's funny that not funny, but, like, ironic that you bring that up. Because I definitely have found a lot of my life, I felt like, why am I here? Like, I don't have nothing good for me. Because I battled my mental health my entire life. Just because I had trauma at an early age in life. And so, I grew up with that fight or flight mentality. And so, I never knew what it was like to be still so that I can bloom. And I think that sometimes being still could be a physical thing where, like, you're not going to move away. You're not going to quit your job. You're not going to, like, just be in it. Be in it, right? Go ahead.
To interject, before we started recording, I came to Bre bawling my eyes out because, you know, and I feel comfortable talking about this. I am separated. I, you know, eventually did get over that college boyfriend, and I met my what would be husband, and, you know, we're currently separated. And, you know, you build a life with someone, you create a lot of dreams, and when you divorce yourself, you know, literally and metaphorically, you are left like, who am I? What are my dreams? Well, damn, I was so busy picking up your dreams, and that is not a knock at him. That is, you know, I think as women of faith, we are taught to be submissive, and thankfully I grew up in enough of a community where it wasn't taught to just endure and be meek, but I really believed being a good wife meant, okay, your dreams are now my dreams, and I'm going to help you get what you need, and you know, so now I'm in this space of, and I told you, I was driving on the way over here and I was crying, and I've been going to therapy for over 10 years. So usually I just keep asking yourself why, and then you'll get to the root of what's wrong. And, you know, I asked myself, like, why are you crying? And so on and so forth. And I came to the answer that I'm afraid to be still. Now, why I'm afraid to be still, I can unpack that with my therapist. But I did learn in therapy last week what you said. When you grow up in a chaotic household or an unstable household, you literally only think your two options are fight or flight.
Yep.
You really don't know. And so I am literally at 31 having to learn that stillness is an option. Boredom is okay. And one thing that we literally got into a few days ago in therapy, I can confuse chaos with fun and that with happiness.
Ooh.
And it's just like, yeah.
That's something, Jazz. And you said something too, but about stillness being an option. I also think that, well, I believe that stillness is a gift. Because we always talk about, like, how, like, because I guess speeding up from our journeys and where we were, like, thinking, like, being in a season, you think that this season is never going to end, and then you live to the other side of that. Okay, fine, like, with your job, cool, with a relationship, okay, but, like, what about blooming where you planted and, like, learning yourself, with yourself, and, like, away from all distractions, away from being a wife, away from being a professional, away from being a mom, or whatever you're going through. So I'm like, being in a season, like, where it's like, okay, I don't have these distractions that, like, maybe life, let's say life happens, right? And you're going through things where it's like, I don't feel worthy at my job. I don't feel worthy in my relationship. I don't feel worthy with my parents. I don't feel worthy with my friends. Go down the list of the things that you don't necessarily feel worthy in. I think that, like, with the world in a constant, like, movement, you start to tack on those things and add things to your toolbox that necessarily ain't supposed to be there. It's like, oh, okay, well, this is my worth in this season. This is my worth. But, like, learning, like, to really be still and bloom is to, like, embrace yourself. First of all, to unpack all those unhealthy things that you have tacked on as, like, your worth, right? To unpack that and to just sit with yourself. Because if I'm being transparent, like, I also have a therapist too, and something that I'm realizing now, like 2019 for me was the year that showed me, like, oh, okay, I've been trying to place my worth in things that are not gonna quantify, like, it doesn't qualify me, you know. Nothing that I've done, it doesn't matter the quality of it, like, it doesn't quantify who I am, where I'm going, you know, what I'm supposed to be doing. But I think that, like, and I think, I mean, a lot of people kind of was going through it. I feel like 2020, like once this started, I feel like it's like a big awakening of a lot of things that's happening.
Yes.
And a lot of things that have been, like things that have been out of order. And I think that maybe a lot of things revealed themselves, whether it be relationships, whether it be jobs, whatever. Like, I think a lot of things have revealed themselves, and a lot of people have been able to look in the mirror. But the biggest thing in being in blooming where you're planted is like being still, but also doing the work while you're still. And so I say like stillness is a gift, because like maybe the chaos around you, you can't use that as a crutch anymore. Like the things that you've been holding on to. But now it's like, okay, blooming, but now I gotta really do the work where I am.
And that's where I'm at. So I don't really have much to say on the topic, but thankfully I have a good enough support system, and you're a part of that support system where you are like, hey, because I kept looking for a Band-Aid. Like I came in here like, well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. And it's like, or maybe you should let this wound heal, and or else you're just gonna keep picking at it.
Yeah.
So.
But honestly, Jazz, I think that is something that it's gonna be a forever journey, because once you heal something else is gonna reveal itself.
Well, Lord, I mean, I feel like at least every 6 months I have a breakdown in therapy, because I'm like, I've been going to therapy for a decade. How am I still on this? And she's like, you're gonna always be on this.
Yeah.
So.
But I think that therapy is not a one-stop shop. Therapy is not like okay, well, I talked about this, now I'm healed from it. Like that might show up in another way. It's like an underlying thing that like you're gonna have to it's like a constant work in progress. So I think like blooming.
And not, if I can interrupt,
go ahead.
This is advice for me, not waiting to love yourself until the bloom has happened. It's usually, and I've gotten away from some of this, thankfully, but I'm not too far removed from the days of once I lose my quarantine weight, then I can think I'm beautiful. Once I have this amount of money in my savings account, then I know I'm good with money. Once I, and I've lived on the other side of those onces and had it happen, and it's so fleeting. Like you feel like, heck yes, this feels good in the moment. It lasts for maybe, if I was lucky, an evening, because you celebrate whatever. But yeah,
I think that I like that what you said. It's just felt like once I arrived, because that's something that I was struggling with, like with my career. I think like that's where it really started, because like I thought that my worth was tied to my career, and so once I was like, okay, well, once I get this, well, once I get that, so once I get here, or maybe if I move to Texas, or maybe if I move to China, or maybe if I move to wherever, like we think like once we get to a place, that's where we'll be able to bloom. But to be honest, I'm thinking about a flower right now, like. It don't bloom overnight.
It's funny. Actually, this is perfect in two ways. One, because I was, let me know if you want to take this out. But I am into astrology, and they say there's like a map you can look at, and it'll tell you all the places where you'll find the most happiness. And so I looked at the map, and it told me these different cities, and then I was like, that's such crap. Like, so, thankfully I was able to kind of like talk myself out of it. But I was in therapy this week talking about healing. I'm so afraid once this intensive program ends that, I'll be completely broken again. Like, what am I supposed to do? And she used the analogy of a plant. And she just said, if you have a garden, you're going to build up a defense. You put up a fence to keep the squirrels out, to keep the bugs out. Those are your boundaries. And then she's like, but you also need to have a good offense too. So sunlight, water, soil, repotting the plant. And she's like, these are the different coping mechanisms, healthy coping mechanisms that we've taught you. So there is, that analogy is really perfect. So no matter if I'm living in China or Dallas, I do have enough of the free will to develop boundaries, enforce boundaries, which is very, very hard for me. But that, again, that's what I'm working on in this season of life. And then realizing I may not get to choose the future, but I do get to choose what I put in my body and how I take care of my body. We have to go over the serenity prayer every day in therapy. So I know I'm really trying hard to wholly accept the serenity prayer. Some days are better than other days, but yeah.
I think that is a good prayer, and it's a good reminder, just like accepting the things that you can, accepting the things that you can't change, doing something about the things that you can change. Because like when we talk about being planted, when you're planted, it's a process. And we look at the flower, and it's like, hey, I want to be here. What do I got to do to be this bloomed flower? Instead of allowing your seed to take root and to develop fruit, right? Like to grow through weeds, if you got to grow through some weeds. And it doesn't mean like, because everybody has them. Everybody has just crutches or just weeds in their lives. Or I mean, you could say the crutch, like, and I shared this with Jazz earlier, like, and I don't care who listens to this. Like, one of my crutches when I used to go through things, I would smoke. Like, that was my thing. And I got to a point that I didn't like being dependent upon something to alter my mind to make me feel good in the moment when I wasn't dealing with my real issues. And so once I started to feel like, dang, it don't matter how high I get, once this high come down, I still gotta sit with myself.
Exactly.
And so that encouraged me to, like, I was using it for the wrong reason, exactly. It was just like a crutch to me. It made me feel good in the moment. But like once I took those things away and I had to like really sit with myself and like accept some ugly truths about myself, bad decisions that I made about myself, but accepting myself with all of my mess and everything that I've ever done that's come along with the choices that I made. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean I've ruined my life, because we still young, like.
I think that's what I needed to hear. I'm very black or white thinking, very all or nothing. And sometimes when I do take that inventory of shortcomings or things I did wrong or things I'm shameful of now related to codependency, I do have to actively remember I'm only 31, because I won't lie, there are days where I'm like, oh my God, I've already wasted my life.
Girl. And then like now that I'm touching my 30s, but it's okay. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. But I'm touching my 30s now, and like I've had moments, especially like, cause I really wasn't, and I shared this on my podcast too. Like I wasn't in the best space. Like I really been kind of going through a lot of things, especially like being in therapy and like embracing. Cause I think sometimes it's so easy to say like, oh, just bloom where you're planted. Like, but what does that mean? That means like on the ugly days when you got something that you like, something bigger than you that you working towards, but like I don't feel good today, so I'm not doing it. Like, so you just gonna wait until the flower blooms, but you are the flower. So you gotta go through all, I don't know, I can't sit here and speak to like the exact steps that a seed goes through, seed time. My
osmosis.
Yeah, osmosis, right? But like a pastor said before, seed, sow time, and harvest. And so like you plant a seed, but you gotta water it, you gotta give it time to grow. But like you are the seed. And so, like, embracing every part of your journey, whether it's like, okay, unlearning that your worth is in your job, what you're doing, how many people see you. And I say this every episode, I probably always will, like, get off of social media, because I think that is such a toxic culture, and it makes us discredit where we are.
Bre didn't make me, but you took me to church this afternoon.
Not physically.
Yeah, metaphorically. Yeah. But... And I deleted Instagram and TikTok, because sometimes it's just a silly distraction, but no, I mean, man, I had to delete my personal one a couple months ago, because you get addicted to the likes and the DMs and, oh my gosh, like, what's getting a reaction, what's not getting a reaction.
Who sees me? You see what I'm doing, you see what I got, look at me. It's just like, okay, why are you doing this in real life?
Exactly.
And so, like,
well, and I think too, like how many of us are staying in, and it can be a friendship, a work relationship, or a romantic relationship. Like, How many of us are taking vacations we don't care about?
Can't afford.
Yeah. Well, now you're touching a real nerve, girl.
Oh,
yes.
listen.
And or staying in relationships that are toxic, all because it's, well, if I don't post this Christmas, you know, like, it's just crazy.
Don't perform,
yeah.
If I don't have something going on today and all of this, you know, yeah, but like, I just think that, like, giving yourself grace, like, we really gotta, like, we are hard on ourselves. We just in general, but people are very, very hard on ourselves when it comes to giving each other, like, are you telling me something? Oh, she's writing on a piece of paper, so I'm
no,
like,
I have ADHD.
No, it's okay, good, go ahead, draw as much as you need. I was like, are you trying to tell me a note? Do I need to stop? But like, a lot of times we are just super hard on ourselves, and it's just like, it's hard to just embrace the journey or the place that we're in, because we feel like we're supposed to be somewhere else. And I think that, like, that's when God, I think, like, when we are, I would say, let me say, like, stripped. When you finally realize that nothing that you've done is gonna feel you the way that you want, and God will strip everything from you, and you just gotta sit bare in the dirt and, like, waiting on your roots
in
to
a ditch.
plant.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So, like, but that's when God does His best work. When He does His best work, when it's just you and Him. So I would really just encourage anybody who is having a hard time just embracing the season, no matter what that season look like you going through a separation, or like me questioning, like, if this is really what I'm supposed to be doing, this is where I'm supposed to be still, like, you know, like, have I wasted my time in my life chasing something that's not real? Like, we have a lot of thoughts, or, you know, like, feel like maybe I should have been somewhere else. I wasted my time with this person, and now I'm 30 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do just. And girl, so it's just like a lot of pressures, unrealistic pressures that we put on ourselves that other people put on us.
You know, they told me something in therapy and recovery, and they say our lives became unmanageable because we tried to play God. And at first I was really resistant to that, because, you know, it sounds so, you know, narcissistic, right? Or like, but it's true. And I want to be clear. I'm a big believer in putting positive energy out. I do believe. I don't want anyone, like, there's a lot of New Age philosophy that I do think has biblical roots, and so I don't want to speak in extremes. However, I can look back at making my manifestation board and saying, okay, it must look like this. Until it looks like this, I won't be happy. And again, nothing wrong with setting goals, achieving goals, and celebrating achieved goals. I never, ever once really, like, truly checked in with God to be like, is this your will? Is this your plan? And because I thought, oh yeah, I mean, it's happening, so it must be His plan. And the more I peel that onion back, I realized how much I was my own idol, and I was so self-serving.
That's good.
Yeah. And so I'm learning. I'm not on the side, you know, maybe you'll have me back on in a few years and I can tell you how I got through this season. But I am learning I got here because I thought I could play God, and that I always knew the right answer. And now I don't.
You spoke a word, sister girl.
Thank you.
But no, playing God, like, that's the biggest thing, like that fight or flight. And this is what I'll say, like, for me, like, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, I'm over Dallas. I've done everything that I was supposed to do. I became a new person. Like, it's time for me to go. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm leaving, right? Or like just jumping from, like, not me in general, but like one relationship to the next. Like, people have different vices, like the fight or flight. Like, this isn't serving me anymore. This doesn't feel good. And I know that the world is going to tell you that. Like, do what makes you feel good. If it doesn't feel good, if they ain't checking on you, if they ain't making you feel good, if they ain't putting in the work, and like, girls, shut up. I be wanting to tell so many people, like, shut up. It's unrealistic, and that's why a lot of y'all are lonely and miserable because you thinking like, oh, well, if this ain't serving me, then I'm on to the next. But like, when you really get to be still and get to sit with yourself, then you'll be able to attract what is for you, instead of playing God and saying, hey, well, this doesn't feel good for me anymore. I don't like the lessons, like, I don't like the hardships that I'm going through. Not even knowing, like, you pray for whatever you pray for God. Like, when you ask God for certain things, He's not gonna just drop it in your lap and say, voila, You want freedom? Well, guess what? You got to get free from some of them things that you don't wrap yourself up in. Like, literally, like, that is how it works. And so when you talk about, like, playing God for your life and, like, all the idols that you've built, not you and specifically, I'm just speaking in general, like, a lot of the idols that you built from, like, wanting to play God, and then once those things are serving you, but then you got stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff, and it's just gonna be that much harder to get out of it, you know. And so I love, like, the idea of, like, being still and just allowing yourself to bloom, to go through all those ugly roots. And it's so crazy, and I'm gonna tie this all in together. My lock journey. So I'll share my lock journey with the world. So for me, locks are not just it's a symbolic journey for me. It's not just because of the aesthetics and long hair. Now my hair is super long hair, don't care. You know, I ain't never had this much hair in my life. But when I started my locks, it was a journey for me, because, like, at the beginning of my like adulthood, I was like, dang, I want something, like, I want my hair to change with me. And so when you think about locks, right, especially if you, like, really go through the process from the base, like setting your foundation, you're gonna go through seasons where you might see a lot of growth. Speaking about my lock journey, see a lot of growth. My hair is changing. I might go through some awkward phases. I might go through some phases where it's flourishing, where I'm getting a lot of attention. I'm getting a lot of compliments. Now my edges is thinning. You know, like, people go through a lot of different phases with their locks. But for me personally, I wanted something that was a journey that's grown with me. And I've seen so many different seasons. Just, I can relate them to my life and my hair, right? Like, seasons where it's like, wow, it can't get any better than this. And then, one of my edges, you know, one of my locks done fell out or something like that. So it's just the same thing with life, ebbs and flows of life, right? But going through all of those still makes something so beautiful. Because I look at my hair, like, I didn't have the confidence that I have now just in life. But my hair helped me learn how to love myself exactly where I was. And I know that that's super deep. And when I be telling people, like, the real reason I started my locks, it was because I needed something symbolic to grow and evolve with me, right? And so relate that to your life, right? You're gonna go through seasons of life where you're flourishing. You might be, you know, living your best life. Your edges is laid. Your hair is super long. Everybody is, like, enjoying you and, like, complimenting you and wanting to do exactly what you're doing, you know. But then you might go through those phases where it's like, I hate it. My hair is dry. It's brittle. Sometimes my hair be looking like earthworms. Like, they just look like I don't belong to nobody. Especially when I don't feel like doing my hair. And I'll be looking like, girl, you got an afro. You got an afro and locks. Like, pick a struggle. Pick one. Literally, this how I talk to myself, okay? But just being, like, just embracing the whole journey and not just the pretty parts of it. It's hard. In life, it's hard. When you go through hard moments with people and just with yourself, it's hard. But you have to see it through and know, like, that whatever you're supposed to get out of one season is gonna open up. Like, there's literally keys in a season that you'll go through that's gonna open up the door to the next one. But we don't see it in that moment because we be wanting instant gratification. And we'll find our certain vices to validate how we're feeling, or like, oh, I don't like this, so now I need something to help me ignore how I'm feeling, instead of just sitting with ourselves and just, like, being still, but then going through the journey of all the phases of life. Because nobody's social media tells you that life is beautiful and everything. It's all about trips and dips and hips and everything that don't even make sense. But, like, that's not what life
legs and
hips and body. Literally, that's gonna be stuck in my head now. But literally, that's just what life is really. It is it's a journey, and it's gonna be journeys, and it's gonna be seasons where you feel great, and it's gonna be seasons where you feel like, I want to dig a hole and jump in it myself. Yeah. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But that's how I be feeling sometimes. But I don't know. Like, I felt like it was good to have this conversation. Not just for myself or just for you, but I think that somebody else could relate to somebody who is currently, like, because I'm still in the middle of a season, like, even though, like I said in my last episode, I'm being obedient because I know that I like, it's time to, but I don't know. I got some stresses on my life right now that I don't know the answer to, and some of them got deadlines, and I gotta make a decision, right? But I can't play God. All I can do is be obedient and just wait until, whatever's supposed to come is going to come. So sitting with it, sitting with that ugliness, sitting with that uncomfortability, sitting with the loneliness, sitting with your doubt. Even if you got to sit in your depression, but addressing it. Because a lot of things, we're depressed because of unrealistic expectations and things that we have on ourselves, and that causes a lot. I'm not saying that that's the only reason for it, but it definitely causes a lot. So
what's that saying? Disappointment is just unmet expectations.
And so I don't know, I just hope that this conversation is just meeting somebody just to sit with yourself and go through, like, even if you don't know how it's gonna turn out, even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it was an interview that I watched, and Angie Martinez is like one of my favorite interviewers. Like, I've studied her before when I was doing radio. Like, I've always looked up to her. But she had this really good interview with Lauren London.
I started it. Yeah, I need to finish it.
It definitely changed my perspective. But just like, one thing that Lauren was talking about was like dealing with grief, and she was like, it was one thing when the whole world's watching and everybody's here for you, but then it's like, oh wait, life goes on and everybody's going back to their life, and it's just like, you in this, and you gotta walk through that dark tunnel, and you don't see the end of the light, but you have to keep going. So I'm just saying all that to say, like, first of all, watch the interview if y'all haven't seen it, but also, like, don't grow weary in your well doing. That's a Bible verse there, girl.
Oh, I need that one.
I don't know the scripture off the top of my head, but I'm gonna post it on Instagram. But don't grow weary in your well doing, because, like, something is coming. You're gonna get through the other side of this. You're gonna get through your challenges. You're gonna get through those days of unworthiness and, like, feeling like you've been abandoned by God, been forsaken by God. You're gonna get through it. So I hope that that this encourages you, Jazz. And
thank you.
For real, I'm serious.
You'll have to have me back at the end of the season. We'll get a status update.
Okay. Well,
maybe.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to it.
Okay.
But in real life, like, just I'm speaking to you, Jazz, but I'm also speaking to, like, whoever is listening. Like, give yourself grace to be ugly, not physically. I mean, even if you have days where, sorry, I'm trying to be for real. Like, even if you have days where it's like, I'm ugly today, because I be having a lot of them days.
Today is one of those days.
It's okay. But, like, give yourself space to just to be ugly, to not know what's gonna happen, to be sad. Give yourself that time, because you know that's a part of the journey too.
Ugly, sad, and directionless.
Okay. Yeah. It's okay.
I need a mixtape. Yeah.
Girl. Okay, but then on the other side of those words, let's find some adjectives.
Beautiful, joyful, and faithful.
I like the last one. That's what I was gonna say, faithful, because that's literally what I just said to my therapist the other day. I feel like my life, like, now that I have dismantled a lot of the idols that I had, where do I go from here? I feel directionless. Yeah. But it's a faith walk. Even me recording this podcast too, and even you being
goosebumps today. See?
Even you being a part of this podcast, me, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't, but I'm just like, I'm trying. I have to, because my way's not working.
And that, yes, yeah.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, because it goes back to playing God. Because somebody said to me in therapy, it was group therapy that day, why are you still holding on? Because look where it's gotten you. You're going to therapy 15 hours a week because this is where you're playing God. So why don't you... They were basically like, what do you have to lose really at this point than trying to surrender to truly making God your higher power and truly surrendering to steps of recovery? And I was like, all right, well, you got me. And since really throwing myself into certain steps and systems and programs, I'm like, oh, okay, turns out I didn't know everything.
But I also, I'm going to highlight this, like, because a lot of times people, like, our generations are not, our cultures are not necessarily taught, like, therapy's a good thing, but it's a great thing. It's a great, and it doesn't mean that you're crazy. Trust me, they used to have me in therapy when I was, like, 14 years old, like, and it used to piss me off, to be honest, and I'm like, ain't nothing wrong with me, but I was angry, and I had trauma, and I didn't understand it at that time. right? But I think like just I guess giving steps to like how do you bloom where you're planted? How do you just like learn how to just be still and just embrace it? Because I know it's easier for me to come out here and say words like, oh, embrace the journey, everything's gonna work out. But when you sitting in that dark room, or when you sitting in this house and you staring at the ceiling and you angry with God and you mad and you crying, or like whatever, you feeling suicidal, because trust me, I've been there multiple times. But just know, like, every day that you wake up, it's because there's a reason for you here. You still have purpose here, and you are going through it. So I really hope that this is encouraging to you, our conversation now and our conversation that was off air, like just to keep going. Even though I love you too. Even if you don't see like the end of the tunnel, just keep going. Know that it's light there.
Choo choo.
Girl, you are silly. Okay, this is gonna throw you for a loop, but that was on my nuggets, my takeaways that I want to give people for this episode. I don't know if you have any last words or anything that you want to share, but I want to challenge you too.
To dig deep and pull something out. No, I mean, really, after talking to you, talking to different therapists this week, I say this from a place of, I'm not on the other side of what I'm about to say, so I'm inside of this, but as it relates to blooming where you are planted, don't only keep your eyes set on the bloom, the harvest, or the flower. Because one thing I have said in therapy is, I'm not joking, I'm like, I can't wait to be in my Lizzo era. And I was like, I just feel like I'm in my, I'll be honest, it's lame. I said my Taylor Swift era. I was like, I feel like I'm just crying a lot. And, I so badly want the shortcut, but that's not sustainable. It's sort of, I don't know. I mean, I think part of blooming where you're planted is appreciating the time it is actually going to take. Just like with truly planting or farming, it's, if we could all plant a seed and have tomatoes the next day, I mean, that'd be great. But then we wouldn't really appreciate the tomatoes. And yeah, but I think what I need to hear, so I'm going to say this, is blooming where you're planted means also admiring yourself in the dirt. It doesn't only mean, admiring yourself once you have bloomed.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you for sharing your truth and your heart with the world. And I know that it's going to fall on somebody's ear who needed to hear this. So thank you for being transparent on my podcast. I appreciate it.
Of course,
and
let it be.
I can't wait to have you back.
Yes. With an update. Or not. I might be like, listen, I'm still in this thing, y'all.
Well, Jess, thank you so much for just being a part. I love this conversation. Definitely, I needed this. I hope that you...
I needed this.
Okay. But, so, I do have an ongoing playlist. This is something that's going to throw you for a loop a little bit. And we were talking a little bit earlier as far as, like, music that we're listening to or things that are... that fuel us, because like I said earlier, like what my friend told me, like the beast that you feed will grow. And so like I had to like change up some of the music that I was listening to, and that's really helped me. I feel like it's like night and day for me, like getting out of the space that I had been in for so long. Do you have any music or?
It's funny, I have this playlist. It's funny, I actually remember the song I said when we first did this.
When we first recorded?
Yeah, and I still have that song and I listen to it a lot, but the song I'm listening to, Survivor by Destiny's Child.
I'm a survivor, okay, because sometimes we do have different songs that are like, that'll hype us up, like, okay, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to make it. I'm going to also, Jazz, I'm going to send you, first of all, I'm going to send you Let It Be the playlist. It's on Spotify. It's just a bunch of songs. We were talking about that earlier, just like certain music, like starting your day just with uplifting music and not like stuff that is like other people's emotions that they done poured into music and now is rubbing off on you. But I really would encourage y'all, like if you need some encouraging music or just something to make you feel good, Let It Be the playlist is on Spotify and Apple playlist.
Do I just type in "Let It Be the podcast"?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I need to. Maybe I don't know. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this is technically episode 8 of Let It Be. But we are going to continue this conversation. And like I said, thank you, Jazz, for just being a part of the podcast. And I'm going to give y'all some updates on Jazz. Jazz is doing good. We on this journey together because that's what accountability and friendship is for. So love you so much. And I hope that you guys just got some laughs out of this, but also got a lot of nuggets. So thank you for just being a listener. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.